Hey guys, welcome back to EKS Outdoors, and today we're going to talk about a very finesse tactic. Probably one of my favorite ways to catch bass ever. I mean, I just picked it up this fall, and let me just tell you something. I have flat out slayed bass with it, and that's the drop shot. I got it, some stuff behind me, if I can get. Okay, real quick, some of you might not be confident in a drop shot now, and then some of you might say, what is a drop shot? Well, it's very, very simple. I mean, it's a very simple term for a leader. It's basically a hook. So you have a hook right here. You can see that. You got a little tiny hook. Then you got a leader. And connected to that leader, you can have a ball style weight or a cylinder style weight. Then you have your hook. Then you have your hook, and it's connected to your line. Next thing you know, you have some type of bait on it. That could be, a drop shot lure, like, let me look back here, like the Gary Yamamoto Shad shaped worm. Love this lure, really good, especially in that pearl color that I got. Works really well. But it's this very simple lure. All it is I like to throw it on anywhere from 10 to about, I'd say, 18 inches of of a leader. That's what I like to throw it on. Then for lures, pretty simple. But before we get into lures, let's talk about the setup I use. Let me get this right here. I use this. Oh, that could have been bad. Hit the light. I use this Berkeley lightning rod. Nothing too fancy, real cheap. This is an older one with Abu Garcia Black Max reel. Very, very simple. You can see I got a little tiny soft plastic shad looking thing on here. I have it wrapped around, but this is what my favorite rod to use with a drop shot because it's pretty sensitive. I can feel when fish hit it, when the bats pick it up in their mouth and run with it very, very well. This is a medium heavy rod. A lot of people like using a medium rod with fluorocarbon, but I'm using monofilament with this. The only reason why I use monofilament is on this one is a fluorocarbon leader. I mean, I have fluorocarbon on the line up to a certain extent, but I mainly have monofilament because when you're drop shotting, you're about anywhere from 4 foot of water to 50 foot of water. And when you're jigging, you kind of jig it up and down. The monofilament, I know monofilament is not the best line ever, but since it floats on the top of the water, I can see it take off a little bit better. It's not that sensitive, so there are pros and cons. I can see my line a little bit better than fluorocarbon, but I love having it on fluorocarbon, and it's not so sensitive like braid. Because let me just tell you, if you have this thing hooked up to braid, you're going to feel this weight bounce up and down on the bottom, and it's awful. I've done it before. It don't feel good. Because, that weight is hitting rocks, twigs, almost anything, anything on the bottom. This thing is literally going to hit, rub against, drag across it. It don't matter. You're going to hit something with this, and if you're using braid, you're going to think you have something, getting your drop shot lure. Okay, so now that you kind of have the idea of what a simple drop shot is, let's kind of go over the baits. Now this right here is a Gary Yamamoto's 4-inch shad-shaped worm. It's in a pearl color, kind of pearl white or pearl blue, and it has that really nice profile that you want on a drop shot. Now, if you don't know what a drop shot kind of mimics. It mimics, shad. So, your main source is a shad or a bluegill, but I think it's more for like a shad. Now, you can throw a worm on your drop shot, but let's talk about the Gary Yamamoto's shad-shaped worm. Now, this right here, the only way I hook it, now I hook mine differently because I know you're not supposed to completely hook it through the nose. You're supposed to have it like this. The problem is the fish around here will tear that off of the hook. So I kind of thread it on a little bit, go probably about 1/4 inch from the bait, then I will run it up onto the head, or almost to the eye of the hook. And then, that's how I rig it. But I do a few things to it first. Like anybody, I fish mine probably wrong, but it helps me set the hook. Because around here, we have spotted bass. In fact, that's our state fish, is a Kentucky spotted bass. And if you know anything about them, they love stealing lures. And it stinks. But you take your shad worm, you hook it up, and then I either put like a chartreuse garlic dip on it, and I jig it up and down. I might squirrel tail it, I might drag it across the bottom. But honestly, this is one of my favorite drop shot lures. Moving on, my second favorite is a TRD Minnow, or the TRD hula sticks. It's like this, except it has like that tube, like the 4 little tiny tube appendages to it. But I like it in this color, the pearl blue glimmer. I like it because it mimics shad very, very well. Also, it's that Elastec, Won't break. I mean, it will break, but almost impossible to do it. And all you have to do is just nose hook it. Very simple, nose hook it. And it'll stay on there. And you can catch hundreds of bats on it. Now, moving on, because I'm running out of time, but moving on, I also like not just in the pearl or the deal color in this, I also like the PB&J, mimics the bluegill very, very well, and very good in low light conditions. I also like throwing on here the trick worm. Now, this is a Robo 7-inch trick worm. I got it midnight because black and blue around the lakes here does very, very well. But just nose hook it. Honestly, nose hook it or wacky rig it is very, very well. It works very well. Just throw it out there, and squirrel tailing this is the best way to hook up on some bats. Okay, now moving on, because remember, I'm running out of time. But we move on. We got the Swimbait. Now color, I pick 4 colors: Setsy Shad, Electric Blue, and Chartreuse, like this one. Pearl Shad, like any pearl, and then any other shad color. Because let me just tell you, you want to mimic shad with a little tiny Swimbait. This is I think this might be a 3-inch, it might be a 2.8, but just nose hook it. I'm telling you what, throw it out there. Don't jig it up and down. I would not jig this up and down. I mean, you can if you want to, but what I find that works good for me is throw it out there and slowly swim it back. Now you're like, well, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just use a swim bait? The reason why I'm not going to use a swim bait with this, or a regular way you rig a swim bait, is because I have it on this weight. This lure is hooked up to a certain depth, and it's swimming its way back to me. So say it's 10 inches off of the bottom, and let's say the bats are 9 inches. Well, they're looking up at this little tiny minnow or shad looking fish swimming over top of their heads. And you know what they're thinking? Either they're thinking, I want to eat it, or they just react to it. A reaction track. Next is that something I want to experiment with, because these are two lures that I haven't fished yet, but I would love to try it, and that is the Alive Shad and Morning Dawn, because I heard Morning Dawn's really good. The Robo Worm. Honestly, I kind of like the Robo Worm stuff. I mean, they had great colors, and their baits feel pretty good, but again, you got that shad looking profile, you know, that kind of big belly, kind of comes up and tapers out to a tail. And honestly, that works phenomenal. You know, it looks phenomenal right now, but I guarantee going to Dale Hollow or going to some bigger lakes here would be amazing. Next up is the Excite Baits Raptor Tail Worm in green pumpkin. Now, I don't know how good this would work, because this is like a swimming worm, but that right there on the back of a drop shot really would look good. I mean, you got this big tail that you can just kind of squirrel tail it up and down, jig it. I mean, I guarantee you that this is going to get absolutely hammered next time I go out bass fishing. Moving on, real quick, before I gotta go, is the Old Faithful. I already spoke a little bit about this, I think. The Cinco, stick bait, whatever you want to call it. This is the young dinger. Honestly, I don't know what the difference is between this and the Gary Yamamoto Cinco. There really ain't much of a difference, other than this is a little bit bigger. And yeah, I mean, this is simple. Wacky rig it, you know, just wacky style, right in the center of it. Kind of have it like this, jigging it up and down, or nose hook it. Because the Cinco, stick bait, whatever you want to call this, I mean, works year round. It's a fish catcher. Obviously, you know, my favorite colors in this is black, and I love black and blue. I'm going to try this out at Del Hollow because, you know, it's a smallmouth lake, and smallmouth love very, very bright colors. You know, got your classic black and blue, and then your green pumpkin. I mean, you can't really go wrong with Cinco. It just works year round. My final thoughts on this whole thing is, on the drop shot, is I think you should throw it year round. It works. I mean, I caught, I don't know, 20 fish on this, and I've only been throwing it for probably about a month out of the entire year. Now, around here, 20 fish within a month, that don't sound a lot, but it really, really slows down, and it's a real grind in Kentucky, because, you know, we get, like, average here, winter is 40, 30 degrees. Sometimes the coldest it might get is below, you know, 20 on average. But all in all, I think you guys should throw the drop shot. And for gear, I'm not the best guy to tell you what to use, but if you want to know for line, I think you should really use either monofilament or fluorocarbon, because braid's a little bit too sensitive. And I guess I'll see you all later.